Guys, I, um, Gary, guys, fucking listen to me. Look, there, the echoes within the background. It's the solar shift. It's hitting. I can't hold this down forever. I need y'all to listen.
Expect that, and then all of a sudden, literally a day later, with the change in the administration, they're acting completely different. They're completely bipolar, right? But a bit of an energetic turnaround now. I'm really curious to see how these two play together. All right, we'll do that more later. So let us get started with the live stream and just go through what's happening. Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome. Veronica says that she has been impacted by that storm in Australia, Category 2 cyclone. Seen a lot of
right here.
Videos of that online, people going out to surf the waves as the cyclone's coming in. A lot of fires right now across the United States on the East Coast. I think also in Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Coming in, so I tried to see if I can pinpoint.
We've had some good rain here in California. We had rain coming down like crazy a couple nights ago. Like, it was like, God turned on the faucet or something, filling up the bathtub just like this. So that was a little wild. And now we have this new solar wind stream impact, this shock wave that really hit the Earth today. That took a little bit of time to build up in its geomagnetic intensity, because you can have the solar wind come in strong, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily trigger those geomagnetic changes. But it did eventually. It took a little bit of time, but we have had a G1 storm now for 6 hours. And we're still in this period of enhanced geomagnetic volatility. So, and right after that storm started, we had this earthquake burst.
Well, we look like churches.
It hasn't been that many earthquakes, but kind of a notable storm right there south of Japan. Right as and after that geomagnetic storm basically started building up.
Like a half hour, and then go back in and record again for a half hour, and then record again, but speed it up each time.
Okay, so let's get started.
It would then play in the background
of broadcast.
Like residents of what? Yeah, residents. Residents. Sound. Resident sound.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special space weather report.
This is in the background.
I'm your host, Stefan Burns. We've just had a solar wind shockwave impact the planet, and this has triggered geomagnetic volatility all across the globe. Right now, there's a aurora that's sweeping through the polar regions. Siberia and Northern Europe just got a really nice show of aurora.
They all come together.
Now it's North America's turn. This solar wind stream is still strong. And interestingly, right as that geomagnetic storm started to build, there was a minor earthquake swarm off the southern coast of Japan. And so there was a magnitude 5.9 earthquake, also a magnitude 5.7, and then some lesser magnitude earthquakes, all rupturing in quick succession in a small area. And Japan is very careful with earthquakes because they have a long history of there being foreshocks before big earthquakes. So a magnitude 5.9 isn't that large, especially because it's more off to the south and in the ocean, but perhaps it's a foreshock before something larger. That has a lot of history to it. It's not guaranteed every time. It's about a 5% probability, but that's definitely something to watch. So we are going to examine what's happening with the Earth geophysically right now because of this solar wind shockwave and this enhanced solar wind strength, this geomagnetic storm, and then we'll look at the earthquake swarm off the southern coast of Japan, and then we'll wrap up with a quick question and answer, and also we'll do a sound healing. I have my two different bowls here, and we'll just play the bowls a little bit to help balance and harmonize our own energies, because our own energies, biologically and more, can get kind of thrown off whack sometimes when you have these sudden, sharp changes in energy, whether it's from a geomagnetic storm, whether it's from, let's say, like a thunderstorm in your area. There's a whole bunch of things. So this is one way, sound healing meditation is one way to just help rest, relax, enhance the parasympathetic nervous system. Happy to do that all for you. And so that is our agenda today. Let's go right into these magnetic field swings that are happening across the globe. We have our geospace delta B map right here.
5 minutes.
And so we see that this is pretty strong. We see our scale. This is the total swing in the magnetic field strength. And it goes up to 400 nanotesla, then actually goes off scale if it gets really dark red. And we see that not only we're having a strong concentration here in the polar regions. This is South Pole, this is North Pole, here's our time.
I left half of me behind.
This is for about the past 3 hours, I believe. Maybe 3-4 hours. You also, though, will see enhanced geomagnetic volatility across the mid-latitude and equatorial regions. So this is still going up to about 100, 120, even maybe like 200 nanotesla. Like, see this blob pop up there? Field swings across the entire globe, which is pretty notable. This is only a G1 storm at this moment in time. So the scale rating goes to 5. You have G1, G2, G3, G4, G5, and then there's something called the KP index, which is like what's used to categorize
Am I doing this one too?
That goes from 1 to 9. And so when you have a KP index of 5, you have a G1 storm. You need a KP index of 9, the highest value, to have a G5 storm. This is only a G1 storm, but we do see some pretty intense magnetic fluctuations across the globe. Again, not only in the polar regions, but also here across the mid-latitude and equatorial regions. It had a pretty significant pulse earlier that gave there was a burst of aurora across Northern Europe, and that may continue through tonight, meaning that people in North America may get a show. Those in Canada, Alaska, perhaps even in those states that border along Canada, they may get aurora tonight. If you're in one of those places now and it's dark, you may want to go out and look for it. But that may continue on. So let us check out some of this other data. Let's check out our aurora forecast right now. Here's North America.
And here's where the fucking hummerdinger is.
You'll see this pulse that swept across Siberia. This is like a 1 hour, 1 day view here. So I can drag this over for you all. And so you'll see here, it's going, and you'll see when this solar wind shockwave hits, because it's very clear. You see the aurora start to widen, and boom, there you go. So all across Northern Europe there, and then starting to go into like Greenland and Canada, but has subsided before now kind of re-strengthening, as you see right there. So there is this second burst of activity that's occurring at this moment in time for the Northern Hemisphere. If we click out of this and go to the Southern Hemisphere, let's see what's happening there. It's unlikely that we're going to have aurora visible across any of the places that have actually people living there. For example, the southern tip of South America, New Zealand, Australia. But it's possible, but we would need this to strengthen a bit more than just a G1 storm. So if you're in the basin, Antarctica, then you may be seeing this. I don't think anyone's watching from there, but who knows? We do see that we had this increase in the aurora there, but again, population effectively 0. So the people are seeing aurora right now are in the Northern Hemisphere, Northern Europe, Siberia, and now Canada, Alaska, and perhaps even in that upper part of the continental 48. And if you are in those areas, at the very least, if you go out and look to the north, you may see some red glow. Or, for example, if you take out your phone and do long exposure, 3 minutes or something like that, you'll probably catch some red glow at this moment in time if you're in North America. Let us look at the actual solar wind dynamics right now. You'll notice right here, we're back to a G1 storm according to the NOAA space weather portal there. So yeah, this has been strengthening and re-strengthening, you could say. Actually, before we go to the solar wind data, let us look at our HB30 and HB60 indices. Because this gives us a nuanced look at this geomagnetic storm. We can look at our 10-day data, and let us actually zoom in here, going from, let's say, like March 7th. Yeah, just for the past 2 days, which will be right here. Just got to click it over. There we go. So here we have our past 48 plus hours of data, just a little bit more than 48 hours. We see that our conditions here were low and quiet. We did have a little bit of a pulse there, going up to 4. You see that. This is a 1 hour measure. But then subsided back down. But look at how we've been ramping up. And some of these values even got close to 6. This 1 hour measure there, 5.667. 5.33. That gave us those KP values of 4.67, which is that 3 hour measure. We can see that right here. Now we've had 9 hours of this G1 storm. We're right below that KP index of 5, which is the official designation for a G1, but they also click it in when you get a 4.667. They round up. So 9 hours now of geomagnetic storming. And that's the first time we've had some significant storming like this for about a week or so, especially of this magnitude. And it's actually been a while since we've had a good geomagnetic storm. So this is kind of overdue, you could say. If we go to our real-time solar wind, we can better see this. We can see the specifics of this. So here we have our past 3 days of solar wind data. And if I step over here again, you can see the KP index is lower, that 3 hour measure of geomagnetic volatility. Then we have some other measures here. We have our plasma temperature, we have our plasma velocity, and our plasma density. And I say plasma for solar wind because we have a probe effectively just hanging out at the L1 Lagrange point in space, and it's just measuring the characteristics of its surrounding environment, which is always having solar wind sweep by it, right? Our little part of space that we are in is always being enhanced by the sun because it's within the heliosphere. But basically, it's just measuring outside that that vacuum that exists. There is some plasma and dust. And so it's measuring those plasma characteristics. So we see that the solar wind velocity just a couple days ago was like 400 kilometers per second. Density was like 7 to 8 particles per cubic centimeter. Temperature was fairly normal. Now look at how everything is bumped up. So most notably velocity now over 500, getting close to 600 at sometimes just recently. Plasma density also bumped up. Now it's hovering around 20 or so. And the temperature also bumped up too. We see our interplanetary magnetic field up there. This is measuring the magnetic field characteristics of that little part in space that this satellite is in. This is the L1 Lagrange point. So this gives us a 1 hour heads up as to what is about to hit us, because it's 1% of the distance to the sun. So we see our solar wind was basically normal. Values here are 5, 6, 7, something like that, right? Some of them are actually a little enhanced, but average is 5. So until you get up to 10, you're kind of within normal territory. This is the black line for the total field strength. The red line is this southward component. It's a certain vector direction in the magnetic field, and you need that to go negative for there to really have a good connection between the solar wind and Earth's magnetic field. And that's what we see here all of a sudden starting just today. So if we go to our 1 day view, we'll really get to zoom in on these changes. And we see, I'll put my head right there because that's the one part where things cooled off for a bit. But here we see that we started to get these negative southward components as the total field strength increased, that black line. We had a little bit of a breather there, and then everything really got started. Then it really flipped southward. Solar wind strength went all the way up to nearly 20. I think it maybe even hit 20 nanotesla, 18 right there at the top. So that's pretty strong. And then we see the sustained southward component right there. We see now we've been in this kind of more unsettled period where it's been going up and down and oscillating. This is when we had aurora really nicely over northern Europe. So right now, just like right now, we're starting to have things click back up into the positive zone. But if this continues to then go back down into that negative zone, just like here, then we could have some really good aurora tonight. And so we often see with the solar wind these zones where we have like good conditions for aurora and geomagnetic volatility, and then like a disturbed period where the solar wind's kind of flipping back and forth and it's locking in and disconnecting to Earth's magnetic field on and off, and then it'll go back to that. It'll go back to this. And so that's possible, though this could be petering out. We just don't know. This is a little bit of a stealthy solar wind storm, you could say, because we knew there was a high-speed stream coming in, but you see some of these enhancements there, like these jumps right there are a little atypical for just a high-speed stream. So there's some other things that were kind of embedded within this high-speed stream that's been impacting us, and therefore, this could last a little bit longer than we may think. Plasma density is high and velocity is, it's actually not even that high if you look at it from a high-speed stream perspective, these coronal holes. Let's check that out. Let me show you what it is that's been giving us primarily this enhanced solar wind over the past 24 hours. Here we have our sun at a 193 and a 304 angstrom view. And we see a few different things here over the past 48 hours.
Yeah, you just drinking fucking juice? It's like I sit here and drink juice.
First up, we see these coronal holes.
You just drink fucking juice?
There's one. There's a little bit of a line right there.
What are you just drink juice
This
for?
is the main one for sure. That one has already swept by. This high-speed stream is already basically sweeping by the Earth right now because of its location on the sun. This one has yet to hit us. This is smaller, but it hasn't moved through that geo-effective position yet, which is right about here. So that is also emitting a high-speed stream of particles because this is an area where the magnetic field is open, the plasma temperature is lower, so it shows up dark, and these ions flow out of the sun really quickly. They can get really fast. They can go beyond having for the past 48 hours. And so we won't really see much. Sun's been fairly quiet, a little bit of activity there.
I gotta stop.
But in